Hello students, welcome back to our video for the Excel project for Business 1210. We're going to go and continue on. We're on step 12, inserting a pie chart for the department and frequency. So we are in the Data tab. We're going to highlight the department and frequency. We're going to insert a pie chart. And it says to move this pie chart to another tab. We're going to call this, because I'm creative, we're going to call it pie chart. It should appear after the data tab. So let's just move the data tab. So it's, there you go, section B, data, and then the pie chart. Let's go back to the pie chart. We want to add data labels to the pie chart. So click on, right click the pie chart, add data labels. We can go back, we're going to format those data labels because it says we want the category name. We want the values, and we want the leader lines, but we want it outside. And that's what we want first. Delete the legend, because we don't need that. A good pie chart has the legend, the data labels right by the section of the pie. Position each data label away from the graph so that the leader lines appear. First of all, we want to step E, part E, it says change the font for the labels. These should be at least 18. Just make it a little easier to see. 18. Now the leader lines, back in part C of step 12, the leader lines are what connects the label with the actual section of the pie chart. So it makes it a little easier and less confusing to know what section corresponds to what part of what label corresponds to what section of the pie chart. We're going to move human resources over to the right, and we're going to extend it to get it all in one row. Frequency, we're going to change this to be something like department. Yeah, just departments, and we're going to increase that font to be 24. And there we go. It also says to move one of the slices from the pie chart so it is slightly away from the others. Let's move finance away. Now there you go. It looks like a video game from the 80s. And that's our pie chart. That makes a really good pie chart. The data labels are close to the section. Everyone reading this knows what section of the pie corresponds to which label. So let's go back. We're on step 13. Step 13, in the data tab, we are using a SUMIF function to count the total number of hours worked and the total overtime hours worked for each department. So what we're going to get Excel to do is count up the total number of hours worked for each department. So we can base it on the department code, the 2-letter code, or we can base it on the department name. I'm going to base it on the department name. So it's a SUMIF. We want to add up all the hours worked for HR, and then the total overtime hours worked for HR as well. So SUMIF bracket. Let's do this. The range is going to be going into section B. Because we're counting the department name, our range has to start off with that column, and we're going to go to column F. There you go. Our criteria is human resources is the first department in column D, and what we want to add together is back in section B. We want to add together all of the hours worked. We click OK, and there is 639 hours. Once again, if we copy this down, let's make this a little bigger. If we copy this down, it's going to change from C2 to F142. It's going to be C3, F143. We don't want that to change. We want D2 to change, but we don't want what we're counting to change as well. So we need dollar signs, separating out the letter and the number. Oops, this part of it for both of these. mixed cell references, and then we can just drag this down and we can see the total number of hours worked for each department. Total number of overtime hours worked, same process, sum if. We can click on here. The range is going to go back into section B, starting with the department code, and we want to extend over to column H to determine how many hours of overtime they have worked. Now before we do the other parts, we can go in here and put a $ in front of the number. The $ in front of the number keeps the number constant. If it's in front of the letter, it keeps the letter constant. Criteria is column D value, D2, and we're going to add together all of the hours worked for overtime. And we need to keep that. Have that cell referenced, set as mixed. And there we go, 14 hours of overtime. Copying that down. Everything is set. There we go. That is step 13. Step 14 is use the sum function to total the values for those two columns. So we have in here, which is a nice sum function, equals sum, how many hours worked in total, and we copy that over, how many hours worked in overtime in total. Section or part 14 has a check process involved as well, or included as well. It says to ensure that you have counted all the values, link the totals from the section B tab directly underneath the totals in the data tab, and they should both match. So let's go here to link values in Excel. Just use an equal sign. We want to go and grab the total sum of hours worked that we did in section B, and that value is right there, and they match. Do the overtime hours match? Overtime hours match. So basically that means that we have accounted for all of the hours worked for all the departments. Okay, step 15 is to use a sum product function to determine the overtime equivalent hours for the organization. Use overtime premium and total overtime hours. So each department has a different overtime premium. Some are paid double, good old executives. Some are in operations are paid 2.5 times their regular wage for every hour in overtime. So basically, what is the total number of equivalent hours, overtime hours worked? So instead, what this wants us to do is take the premium, multiply it by the total overtime hours for each department, and then add those up. So we could create a different column, and we could go like this, and then add those up, and we would get, this value here. This is the value we're looking for. Excel has this really nice sum product function, which basically saves us a few steps. Equals sum product. The first array is the overtime premium. The second array is the overtime hours. Close that off, and we will get, we are getting an error because if you look at my my values here, I have F2 to F9, H2 to H10. They have to be the same. So that was a teaching moment. And there it is. We can extend that, and it's the same hours. So basically that's what the sum product does. And I gave you a free teaching moment there as well. Okay, we can get rid of that column. So we know that the equivalent hours work because in some departments they get more overtime, or they get a better overtime rate. So their hours actually add up to be more in terms of equivalency. So the last thing we want to do in this report is create a VLOOKUP function to return the appropriate values in the employee lookup table we have down here. Enter your name from step 1 in the yellow shaded in cell. Remember that it was your first name plus a first letter of your last name. And we want to enter a lookup. And there's different lookup functions. I like the VLOOKUP function, so that's what I'm using here. We want to look up this value. We want to basically go into our section B and return. Basically, it's going to find that name we have and return the value in the third column. And we want it to be exact. There it is. I work in operations. What is my computer login? ID, looking up this value as it relates to these values. So we're looking at column 5. And we want the exact match. There it is. How many hours did I work? Another VLOOKUP. Looking at the same thing, look up that name we have, hours worked. We want to match that name with column A and then return the values in column F, which is the 6th column. Oops. Column 6, and we want an exact match, so we enter false, and there it goes. There it is. So now, well, with that, we can go and change. Let's find a name here. Let's use Hope. We can enter in the name of Hope, and basically that information comes up. We know that Hope works in finance. There's a computer login ID, and hours worked 80 by 96. I think I saw Jay's name. There it is. So that's a good employee data lookup table. So that is it for the Excel report, what's required for this report.